Good evening. Welcome to the Student Services Committee this evening. Could we please verify that the meeting has been properly posted?
Yes, it was.
It has, thank you. All right, our first order of business then would be for any opportunity for public comment. Did we have anyone sign up?
We do not.
We did not, excellent. Our first action item this evening would be a motion to approve the minutes from last meeting. Do I have?
I so move.
Moved by Ms. Voigt,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Moore. Any discussion?
My only discussion is that I wanted to publicly thank Karen Pilarski for picking up on the presentation. It was almost like reading our minutes in the article on May 16th that appeared in the Freeman of SRO Ernst's presentation on May 7th here.
Got it, thank you. All right, seeing no other comments, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, passes 5-0. So we have two discussion information items this evening. Our first is the academic and social behavior curriculum review.
Awesome. So we have a few team members that will be coming up and joining us. So Mark Lenner, who is our Director of Student Services, as well as Lisa Paulin, our Director of Secondary Special Education. The work on this topic really began prior to me. Some of it you'll see it goes back to when Dr. Cook was here and started a book study and committee of behavior committee after school. The purpose of the report tonight is to provide an update. But I also want to share with you that what we're trying to do is mimic what we do in teaching and learning. So in teaching and learning, there's a curriculum review process, and much like anything that's universal, it goes through a process. We have a variety of different people looking at the resource and giving feedback along the way. We haven't done that just yet prior to now in the area of student services, and in the area of academic and social behaviors, we do have some curriculum resources. So tonight what the team is going to share with you is just an update on the process that we've been taken, but it will mimic what you saw most recently with the elementary literacy. So just as a reference to that, for those of you who aren't on teaching and learning, these are just two slides of when the team had presented. So as far as current resources, the team will talk a little bit more about the resources, but prior to next school year, we'll have to make some decisions regarding either renewal or purchasing of something else, and with anything, what is the implementation plan? So based on the discussion tonight, what we would do is then take the feedback and questions, do some more work, and potentially come back in August with a stronger recommendation. Right, like I said earlier, tonight is more just about an update on the process and also just how we're trying to link and align our work to teaching and learning as well. So we'll start with the curriculum review that Mark and Lisa have been working on, and then they'll share more details.
All right, thank you very much. So our curriculum review actually began last school year during the 22-23 year. Where we looked at behavioral trends over the previous 4 years. Actually, Dr. Cook found the behavioral solutions textbook that we've been using since then and kind of expanded to include the RTI at Work model. That book incorporates the use of or the study of essential academic and social behaviors. Those are the types of behaviors that we want to see in our students at each grade level, K through 12. And then incorporating behavioral goals in the school action plans. Starting next year, you will see in each school's action plan, the old SAIL plan, what we used to call the SAIL plan, there will be a behavioral component in each and every school's plan. The 4 C's of climate, communication, curriculum, and culture are also a focus of the text. Climate being literally the physical building, creating a physical space that students want to be a part of. Things like student artwork being shown. You can see that in each of our buildings very clearly. They're very big into creating a welcoming climate for our students. Communication, I think probably speaks for itself. Having that curriculum of those academic and social behaviors, and then creating a school culture where both students, staff, and families are also involved in creating that culture of belonging for students and performance as a result. Each school created school-precise problem statements, looking at their data and making a determination based upon what their specific school needed that helped to create their action plan goals. So that was last year, and Lisa's going to talk about this year.
So I had the opportunity to join the EMLSS, Student Engagement and Behavior Team, which is the Equitable Multi-Level Systems of Support. So the start of our school year in October, what we did was we asked that each building administrator and their building leadership team complete a Tier 1 resource inventory so that we knew what resources we were currently using in the district to address those academic and social behaviors. What we did as a team in December and January was a review of the current available Tier 1 resources that we had in the school district of Waukesha. And in April of this year, we began a Tier 1 resource curriculum review process. So looking at what we currently had and then investigating additional Tier 1 resources that would meet the needs in the district.
Okay. Our work is being guided by the Wisconsin competencies that are focused in 5 domains. So when we look at academic and social behaviors, these are the types of behaviors that we want students to be able to demonstrate K-12. And the competencies are written at each grade level, so they build upon each other year over year. We can't expect, for a second grader to be fully self-directed, but we would certainly expect that of an 11th grader. So the first 3 competencies are self-awareness, creating that growth mindset to recognize their own personal strengths in order to describe and prioritize their personal skills and interests in the way that they want to develop. A student, for example, who's very talented in art, that might be a growth area for them where they could see themselves maybe perhaps pursuing a career in that. Self-management, is where they are able to consistently set attainable, realistic goals for themselves and reach those goals through persistence. The third is social awareness, how their family, their culture, the community around them impacts their thoughts, their beliefs, their actions.
The 4th competency is responsible decision-making, so being able to generate a variety of solutions in order to solve a problem and then having that understanding of how the decisions that they're making are impacting their well-being and the well-being of those around them. And then also the 5th domain is relationship skills. So identifying the impact of their personal decisions on themselves and those around them, and then that awareness to be able to advocate for themselves if they need help academically or socially within the school setting.
In terms of our current state of universal instruction, I actually provided you with a glossary that's at your seat, and we'll have this posted on board docs as well. But this is what we are primarily using at this time. That includes Second Step. Second Step is our primary curriculum partner through grades K through 8. K through 5, we use Second Step kits that were purchased previously. 6 through 8, we actually have a Second Step subscription, so that's online. Allows us to a little bit more closely delve into that, and also provides us with online training for teachers, which is helpful. And the primary areas of focus for Second Step are social connectedness, growth mindset, goal setting, developing a positive sense of self, emotional management, and empathy or perspective taking. Those are the main areas for Second Step. Zones of regulation is primarily utilized at the elementary level. The zones are broken into 4 areas, blue, green, yellow, and red, and they correlate probably the way you would think that they would, in that red is the zone that, we teach students about not wanting to stay in the red zone, for example, and giving them skills and strategies to work through that when they find difficulty. Playworks is our partner for recess, actually, and creating positive recess experiences for students. Things like having the opportunity to play every day, get to choose what to play. They actually teach students games that create coordination and not competition, so that students are getting along, and they also help them with problem solving, because inevitably that comes up when students are playing things. They talk about, utilizing rock, paper, scissors as a way to settle an argument, which is actually also very effective for high school students, I've found, surprisingly, but I witnessed that in a PE class myself. And so Playworks, we've utilized for a number of years. They help us out with our recess time. PBIS is, it's not a curriculum. It is a way of working through behaviors. It's positive behaviors, interventions, and supports. It's an evidence-based framework for supporting students' behavioral, academic, social, emotional, and mental health. It's a way of thinking about and addressing issues that may come up in a school, and also working to prevent those types of issues through positive interventions. And then the Healthy Minds curriculum is from Children's Wisconsin. It's actually a focus of, a broader focus of health. They talk about mental health as long as emotional and physical health, recognizing feelings and emotions and learning how to deal with them, empathy and compassion, stress and how to deal with it, healthy relationships, common mental health needs, and how to get help when needed. And so we've utilized the Healthy Minds curriculum at the elementary level for a few years now. We did not include some of the things that we also use, which are, for example, our Too Good for Drugs curriculum. It kind of is in this area, but it's more specific, of course, to drugs and alcohol and preventative strategies for keeping kids away from those types of things. We saw that as an AODA type need, not necessarily something in our universal instruction area. So, okay.
So we began our work in April with identifying Tier 1 resources for grades K through 8. As Mark had said, when we look at what we have as a resource at the Tier 1 level that's consistent, it's second step, kindergarten through 8th grade. So we wanted to identify other Tier 1 resources for grades K through 8. And then the team identified non-negotiables for Tier 1 resources to be considered for review. So as the team met, we discussed that we would want any resource that we were going to continue to move forward to be available in Spanish. We wanted to have a home connection because I feel it's important to have that connection between what we're doing as a system at school academically and socially with home so that we can reinforce those things. We wanted a digital platform. That way, as the resource is updating, the teachers have that in real time at their fingertips. Also, there are some free trainings on most of those platforms that teachers can access to better help guide their instruction. And we found with kits, it's sometimes hard to have all of those resources where you need them if you have teachers sharing kits. So we thought that having a digital platform with the most updated information and training for teachers was important. That independent professional development, so they have videos and tutorials and trainings on those websites. And then obviously, since Behavior Solutions is our guiding text, we wanted to make sure that aligned with the Behavior Solutions book. As the team looked further at those Tier 1 resources, we did eliminate options based on programs not being robust enough for our needs. Some of them, I'm going to be honest, maybe were more appropriate for elementary, but not as friendly at that middle school level, and we really wanted to try resources that would engage learners K through 8.
The directors scheduled online meetings with 4 of the different Tier 1 resource providers chosen by our team. We gathered information about the programs. We inquired about those non-negotiables. I mean, some of them just frankly said, I'm sorry, but we don't offer that in Spanish. Directors were given demo accounts to share with the team. We met to review the data about those non-negotiables and about those 4 programs that were explored. I already mentioned Spanish. The team reviewed demo accounts for 2 new Tier 1 resources that's beyond Second Step, which is our current resource, and we generated a list of pros and cons.
And then as far as next steps, so the team identified 3 Tier 1 resources to review. So we're going to review Second Step, which we've been using. We are also going to be reviewing Navigate 360 and Character Strong. So the EMLSS team is going to engage in summer work, and we are going to include other stakeholders within the district. We're going to be getting feedback from teachers as well as administrators to conduct a comprehensive review of those Tier 1 resources and then prepare recommendations for the Cabinet and Board of Education, as Jen said, for August, because we'll need to decide kind of next steps, either with second step or a new resource in that implementation plan.
And that's it. Questions?
Any questions? Comments?
I just want to make sure I understand. So at this point, those three are what you're going to be exploring as options, and some of the ones on here are,
Some of those that we're already using, we don't see that we're going to be, for example, Playworks, we expect we're going to continue to partner with Playworks moving forward. The same thing with zones of regulation or PBIS, and really zones and PBIS are text-based, it's not a curriculum. So, we continue to have a strong feedback from schools about utilizing those, so we'll continue to do so.
and Healthy Minds, or
I would add to the ones that we were using previously, like zones or regulations. If every elementary school doesn't have it, part of our next steps, if we're continuing with it, is to ensure that everyone has it and has the book and has,
training.
like, everyone has the same, like, set of resources and tools. But that's what we found with the Tier 1 resources, that it is inconsistent, but a lot of elementary schools do have zones of regulation.
and then the Healthy Minds, is that or is that-
That's done through our elementary school counselors who cover all the schools, and so that would likely continue as well.
Okay, so then these, it looks like these five are in continuation, and then, I'm sorry, of the three, you're picking one of those, or you're incorporating all of those
No, I think we would look to make a recommendation on one.
on one?
Yeah.
The reason I'm asking is this is a lot of things going on.
Yep,
And I'm just trying to do the math and during the school day and the school week of all these things going on, these little, to have to process
Yep.
all of these different approaches, and I know some of them overlap, but there's a lot.
yeah.
Okay, so I'm just trying to understand where we're at with this. Okay.
Different tools at different points during the year. So for example, the Too Good for Drugs that I mentioned before, I mean, those are done in 10 weeks, fourth through eighth grade. Those lessons are about 20 minutes apiece. So, just to give you kind of an idea as to the time constraints or the time consideration. It's meant to add to the curriculum, not replace in any sort of way.
Sure, so the second step and Too Good for Drugs and those types, those are done within the classroom at some point during the day during instructional time.
Correct, yep.
And then some of these others are just models that you.
Correct. PBIS,
So there's
yep,
no lessons involved, like zone of regulation. There's no lessons involved. It's
Correct.
just instructional time.
correct. And that can oftentimes be used as a tier 2 intervention where, you have a student that's having difficulty regulating their emotions, and so.
But not no class.
No, correct, yeah. So, for example, I've seen Amanda DeSua, one of our school counselors who was here recently. She was doing a lunch bunch, and so she had 10 students going through zones, talking about those needs.
Each of the things that we currently have in place offer different tools at different times, like Mark said, but second step really is our curriculum right now, kindergarten through eighth grade, where zones is common language, and you'll see elementary teachers on their lanyards, they'll have zones of regulation because they use it as a visual and a verbal prompt. Where Playworks, that's really more focused on recess and other things. And so sometimes, depending on what level you are with Playworks, there's a coach that comes in from Playworks. And actually, some of our very own students serve as coaches at the elementary recess time so that kids are working on coordinating and not just playing games like and competing. So they all have different components, but our focus was to really first identify what we all have. We have a lot going on, like you said, and our primary resource right now is second step, moving forward, making some considerations of what is the best resource, and maybe at some point, we don't need all of them. I'm not sure, we're not there yet, but we wanted to get a current state.
Mr. Moore?
Thank you. From what I looked over and what you just said, Ms. Kieran, it sounds to me, again, again, that this is more where teachers can use different tools throughout the day at different times, like Mr. Mark Leonard said. So, for example, zones of regulation, there's no curriculum for that. We all, educators will know what that means. It's just managing behavior and also directing students to manage their behavior. So, you know, red, you know what that means, blue, you know what that means. So it's giving students a chance to correct their behavior before we get to red, or if they're in red, or to get out of red. So it's not really a curriculum, it's just, no, you know to manage your behavior or correct yourself before we get to the next level. So that's understandable from what you all are saying, and same thing like with recess time and play work. So these are just tools from our understanding, like PBIS. We all, mostly educators, have heard of that. We know that the students will know that the expectations are. You walk in the building, you usually see PBIS on the walls. Students are able to look at it. It's in the classrooms. They know the expectations are there. So that should give them some type of framework to know what the guidelines are to manage their own behavior. So from my understanding, just correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like these are different resources that educators can use. It's a lot going on, like Ms. Koenig said, but it's good. It's busy and good reasons in terms of teachers have different classes that have different needs. and sometimes throughout the day, you may have to be able to use one of these resources at that time, or depending on, or something can occur, we know with children, any time of the moment. So from my understanding, again, this is just different resources that they can use throughout the day at different times, so.
Yes, and also sometimes it's different at school, but that's one thing we'd like to clean up, is ensure what are the best resources that we want at every school. It's not about what school you go to if you have zones of regulation. If we're going to work and function as a system, we're going to all use zones of regulation, so that when I say, oh, it looks like we're headed towards a red zone, then we have this similar vocab for our students and our staff alike. So yes, they all have pieces where second step is more of a curriculum where there's lessons that are taught from teachers and the elementary counselors.
Ms. Kozlowski.
Thank you. I've been waiting for this topic for a long time. I think that both Ms. Gunderman and Mark, you've been part of the question. So just to kind of break this down into a couple different pieces that I'm looking at. When we talk about the social emotional side, I think we recognize the importance of having our students understand that. I think I joke often that we have adults that should probably have another lesson in managing all of this as well. But the difference is that we talk about is the implementation of social emotional learning. A big selling point of it always was that it's going to improve academic achievement, it's going to improve behaviors, it's going to target these specific pieces. And I would to a degree argue that I don't know if we're seeing that. And I don't know if we have a way to measure it. And so one of the pieces that I do like that Ms. Gennerman is saying, there has to be a split to me that talks about a curriculum-related lesson as to what exactly are we teaching and is it consistent. I've reviewed the second step curriculum that is presented by Second Step ad nauseum. It's very long, it's very lengthy. When I ask, can you tell me what we are teaching? What are the lessons that we're doing? It's not real clear. If we don't have here's the plan, here's where we're doing it. So my questions always are, is everyone teaching the same thing, similar to the scope and sequence? Are we following the same measures? Are we looking at the same thing? How are we measuring it? How do we know if we're winning or losing? Where are we seeing improvements? Where are we not? Because that's truly the value of what we're trying to get at. And remember, the fundamental purpose that we're here is to give them an education. And while this is a layering piece that has, arguments both for and against as to whether or not it's a value, my ask is truly, as we start to research this, it needs to be curriculum and teaching and learning, behaviors assessed through student services, but I want to be able to follow up and understand, is what we are doing helping? Am I able to measure that? And I don't know what the answer is. We've talked a lot about how do you know if you're winning? But I think that the lack of having a consistent, structured curriculum, who is teaching is it? Sometimes it's a counselor, sometimes it's a homeroom teacher. Where are we going through the motions to get stuff pushed out because it's included in instructional hours? I don't know. But those are pieces that, as we are going through this, that I want to make sure that we are assessing, because it will be a metric that I'm going to ask as a KPI for the Teaching and Learning Committee. And then moving a bit, character strong, we're only looking at K through 8, is that correct, from a curriculum improvement?
Correct.
Okay, because character strong was vetoed, or I should say that's maybe the wrong word, chosen not to move forward at the high school level from the board, I think a couple years ago. Okay. Yeah, I like this. I like what I see. I like utilizing and having teachers be able to have different means to be able to work with the students. And I will say, just a couple weeks ago, I was doing touring, and I think Dee or Jem actually pointed out to me, we had our kindergartners that were actually using the zones of regulation, and they were working on their own at 5. I mean, so for me, who is truly, I'm not an overwhelming fan of social emotional learning, just because I think our focus, where I want it to go. But there is true value when you start to see how that helps and where it goes. I just want our focus on where it should be. Point being, there's a lot of stuff in the curriculum that is not what we need and what we should be doing to help advance emotional regulation across all levels. So from that standpoint, I was very grateful to actually see it in place and have all right, so now I can pull back in. I can be, I can learn along the way as on here too. But, so that is, and my long diatribe here is getting to 2 pieces. Curriculum, teaching and learning, behavior management, student services. And it's the behavior management that really, in some cases, and I hear mixed, but that behavior is still a issue that we see in the classrooms, that is a struggle. And how do we get our arms around all of that? Because what we're seeing is self-regulation, zones of regulation doesn't always work. And so how do we drive that? So that's what I will be looking for on the two prongs from
And I
as we
think
move forward.
what Jen had said I think our teachers are working very diligently to do what's in the best interest of students. But I think, like Jen had said, there's different resources at different buildings. So we're hoping that by making sure that everyone has the same resources, and like you said, making sure that we're implementing whatever it is that we're using to fidelity, and that this same thing is being taught at each school. So if I leave Hawthorne and I go to Hadfield, I'm in the same spot, I have the same language, the same tools. With that fidelity of implementation, we are wanting to see, like you said, results of how this is positively impacting behaviors at school and giving teachers the tools that they need to manage the classroom, so that we see that academic growth as well.
Perfect. Thank you. This is great.
Thank you.
I would also add to that part of our work thus far in teaching and learning and student services, we often come around data. And one of the things that we've been using for behavior data is our behavior referrals. It's very reactive. It's very dependent upon the adult entering it and the trends. While Mark can look at the trends every year, but sometimes we're pushing adults to enter more behaviors. So does that mean our behavior is getting worse or better? So what we'd like to do is have like a program outcome goal with maybe some of these resources have some other ways to measure student success rather than a reactive just behavior report.
Mr. Moore.
Thank you for that, because I think one of the issues with what Ms. Ginnerman is saying, and she's right on that, when it comes to teachers viewing behavior in different manners. Ms. Ginnerman is totally right on that, because I may look at something as a teacher that, it's not that serious, the student did this, I'm not going to report it, but the other teacher may think that's very severe. So like she said, it's the inconsistency on what behavior should be reported and what behavior should not. Some teachers overlook things in terms of it may not be a big deal, or and that's not to say it's wrong or right. We don't know the relationship that teacher may have with that student. But right or wrong, we should be consistent, and I think it's not really administration's fault to a certain degree, because again, they're not in the classrooms, and I think the teachers have to come together and be consistent with what are we going to allow, what are we not going to allow, especially at the secondary level, where middle school and high school behavior is just we got some work to do. And that's across the board. It's not just here in Waukesha. It's across the board with what we've seen out in our middle and high schools. But that right there, that missing piece in terms of teachers getting on the same page and saying, okay, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, what's going to be reported regardless of, what classroom the student is in, and moving forward with that. So I wanted to just back you up on that and let you know that I see that, so
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Have we ever tried to get a sense of how much time is spent by staff managing behaviors during the day as a percentage of their time? And how much time we spend in these curriculums? And I'm not trying to correlate the two, I'm curious, given some type of measurement to say, hey, we know that there's a lot of time spent doing this, which I would assume there is, certainly at the elementary level, in various ways, just to get a sense of,
you wanna-
what's all going into this. I know this is
Do you want to?
very broad general question, which I expect you to have all the answers.
I don't know that I've seen
away.
anything out there that quantifies, student behaviors in terms of time. We do look at student behaviors through our, through WISE-Local, and we can see year over year what we're looking at. I wasn't going to say this tonight because I don't want to jinx anything, but year over year, between last year and this year, pre-expulsions are down, at my last check, about 15%. Now, that is not me. That is the hard work of our teachers and staff and students and families who are reinforcing expectations of our students. And I'm going to knock on wood because I don't want to have a bad day tomorrow. But I do think that is a metric that we can kind of celebrate. Also, I think if you look at WISE-Local, you'll see that the minor behaviors are up, but that's also because the major behaviors may be down, and teachers have more time, to what Mr. Moore was saying, to document and intervene on those minor behaviors before they become major behaviors. And contact parents and let parents know what's happening in the classroom so that they can partner with us. I think probably every time at the discipline norming sessions that I hold twice a year, one of the most powerful things that an administrator can say to a parent is not, your kid did this. It's, I need your help. Please, I'm asking for your help in intervening in this situation. And that is something I think that we are seeing, that is working. We're partnering with our parents and our students. So I'll look now. I mean, with a fresh set of eyes, I'll look to see if there's something out there that says this will save your teacher's time, instead of addressing behaviors. But I don't know that I've seen that
Mark,
specifically.
can you speak to the amount of time between counselors and teachers at elementary and middle school level, like for the lesson itself?
Yeah.
Like a week?
So the second step lessons are led by the elementary teachers, okay? And we do have spreadsheets that track, who's doing what at what time. There are expectations regarding what they're going to cover on a given week. Some of the other things like the children's hospital curriculum, that's done by our school counselors at the elementary level. We have them at a minimum of 1 day a week at the buildings throughout the year, and so they spend time pushing into classrooms and doing that work. Same thing with Too Good for Drugs. So, I'm sure it's going to vary from place to place, but these are meant to be short duration, intermittent frequency lessons that allow kids to learn, process, practice, and then come back and learn some more. So that's the goal.
I did have the opportunity, when I was a special education teacher at the district I was in, to teach a couple of the second step lessons, and I would say generally that would be about 15 to 20 minutes that I would spend teaching the lesson. We would then end up maybe just reviewing kind of that common language that was used then throughout the remainder of the week. Generally, we would teach one lesson per week. So it was not a large time commitment from that classroom teacher at that point in time. And I think what Mark was talking about as well is one of the reasons we're looking at that digital platform is that may make it easier for us to track, like you had said, teachers, what the scope and sequence is, when we're supposed to be teaching what, and then being able to see that people are logging in to do those things to then document that improvement in that classroom social behavior.
Ms. Koenig.
you had mentioned, Mark, I think the elementary teachers administer the second step lessons in middle school. Is that the same in the middle
Yeah,
schools?
yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
I know I've been out a few years, but when I was, the last few years I was in the middle school, I do remember the second step lessons, were taught by I think they were in the science classes. Science teachers were 1 day a week involved in that. I remember it being the entire class period though. And now I think the lesson might have been 20 minutes, but there was a pre-warm-up, there was a lesson, and then there was an activity. So it lasted the entire class period. It was 45 minutes, rather, 50 minutes rather than just 15 or 20 minutes. So
Okay.
I just want to make sure that that is clear, that the lesson itself might be 15 or 20 minutes, but there's things, enrichments embedded around it, activities, and it did stretch to the entire period. So I'm not sure if that's the same now, but I know when I left a few years ago, it was like that.
I know the middle schools had the conversation, they have a 20-minute advisory time each day, and I know that they were talking about embedding some of those second step lessons into that 20-minute advisory time to make sure that they're maximizing the educational minutes in other classes. So if that's not currently happening, that's something that they're looking at moving towards. I was in some scheduling conversations with the team this school year.
Because that was a frustration for the teachers that ended up having the second step delegated to their class time. It was a frustration, I do remember that. My other question I just had is, so you mentioned that you were looking at a resource that would have a Spanish component. Are all three of those then that you're considering up there, do they have that Spanish component?
Correct, yep.
Okay. All right, so right now, we're not locked into second step. We're considering the other two as well, and
Correct.
then make that decision come August. Okay.
All right, any other questions? Well, thank you very much. Looks like we have a lot to do before August, so we look forward to that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next discussion item this evening will be the role of the special education teacher.
Yeah, so I'll introduce some of our team members that are coming up. Lisa Pollen, I don't know why you even left the table. You get... So, of course, tonight we have our secondary director of special education, Lisa Pollen, back at the table. Hadassah Robinson, our director of elementary special education. They've been up here before presenting a little bit more about special education. Tonight, we're excited to bring you the next part in our Role of series. This has been an exciting feature to have throughout this year, where we highlighted different roles as far as school psychologists, counselors, social workers, school resource officers. We'll continue on that until we get them all covered. But tonight, I want to turn it over to the directors. They are going to talk about the role of the special education teacher, and they have a few friends with them as well.
All right, well, we are really excited as we close this school year to have our wonderful special education teachers alongside us. So this is Nivi Rivera. She is one of our elementary special education teachers, and Katie Donahue, one of our secondary special education teachers that are joining us tonight. So thank you, ladies, for coming. We really wanted to start our presentation around the collaboration throughout the school year between teaching and learning and student services. We serve students within our dual language program and our monolingual programs throughout our system and our transitional academy for 18 to 21-year-olds. And so we really do work hand in hand with teaching and learning with our classroom teachers, and the role of the special education teacher is really making sure that our students, alongside the classroom teacher, all of our students together are able to access that Tier 1 education, that classroom education, and what supports and accommodations we're able to provide so that students are successful within their classrooms. And so that's what we really wanted to start the presentation, really highlight that as our goal as we move forward.
Okay, just like Hadassah just mentioned, the role of a special education teacher is to legally be responsible for providing that specialized design instruction and supports within the individualized educational plan for each of the students that we serve. Some of my students are there. What is our role specifically? We really focus on delivering that specialized design instruction, and we are addressing those disability-related needs that our students have. We also plan and lead IEP meetings. We collaborate with education teachers to implement those inclusive practices. It's just like Halasa said, it's just not only making sure that they're able to access it, but also participate within that Tier 1 instruction in the regular education setting. We are always collecting data on students' progress towards their unique learning goals based on their IEP plans. We design, implement, and progress monitor those academic and behavioral interventions as well as those goals, and that it totally connects with the item that was discussed previously. We train and supervise special education paraprofessional, making sure that we equip them with what they need to serve our students, and just to make sure that interventions are executed with fidelity and consistency, and that they're able to provide all the supports across the educational environments. Another thing that we do is establish and maintain a solid communication with the students' families or guardians to ensure that they feel like that they're that main part of the team, that people that are crucial in the development of our students, and that they understand special education's processes. A lot of our parents, they are unaware of what these processes entail, so we want to make sure that we make them feel as part of the team as everybody else. We manage classroom crises in regards to behavior. We resolve conflict, create behavioral intervention plans to support students with significant behavioral needs and different needs that they might encounter throughout the day. We prepare students for different school transitions. We also teach and reinforce appropriate behaviors, as well as create plans to reduce inappropriate behaviors for students in the special education environment, as well as keeping accurate records of everything that we're doing at the same time.
Very dynamic.
Yes, we do a little bit of everything throughout our day. This is a visual representation of how my week would look like, but I'm gonna focus in just one typical day because my days kind of vary throughout the week. I start my day with an approximate 35 minutes of staff meetings, prep time, and that time I'm getting materials prepared for my students throughout the day, as well as you can use that to collaborate with regular education teachers to make sure that they feel empowered to work with our students throughout the day. After that, I have a caseload right now of 15 students within the areas of autism spectrum disorder, SLD, and OHI, which is learning disabilities, as well as attention and behavioral issues. And just in a grade level, I have 8 of them, so I make sure that I am proactive about this, and I have a check-in and check-out system for them to make sure that I give them those expectations in the morning. We discuss our reinforcements throughout the day and what they're going to be able to check out and receive at the end of the day. So I make sure I allocate time for that check-in and check-out in the afternoon. After that, I can either pull out or push in for social skills groups. The pull out is when I'm teaching those social skills in the special education setting. That goes around 20 minutes, 15 minutes, depending on students' needs and IEP writing, how they're written in the IEP. But I can also be providing push-in would be the generalizing of those skills within the classroom. And just also modeling what I do with my students in the special education setting to that regular education teachers to make sure that when we are not present as student services or special education staff, gen ed teachers can also implement what we're doing. So there is consistency there. After that, you're gonna see different chunks of the day and where I'm gonna be providing specialized instruction that can vary depending on the needs of the students. It could be from 20 to 30 minutes, some of them 15, depending on their attention span, ability level, to try to accommodate for the 15 students that I'm servicing currently. My groups are not based solely on grade level, but ability level. So there might be SDI or specialized design instruction groups that I can have a first grader with a third grader or a second grader that are at the same ability level, to make sure that I am able to service everybody. I also allocate some time for progress monitoring. That's why you see that on a Monday and a Friday. Try to be proactive as well. And making sure that I am progress monitoring weekly, regardless of attendance. Some students tend to be absent on Fridays a lot, so I try to make sure that I can get that progress monitoring done close to that week, not even starting, right? So that I can get accurate and reliable data. Also another part of my schedule that you're going to see is those chunks for makeup sessions that can allow me to provide intervention that could have been missed for different variables. Student behavior dysregulations that might take longer times than scheduled for because a student, we had winter break and then we're starting back from zero and they're completely dysregulated and there was a change in their routine, and kids in the spectrum tend to have those problems a lot. So I just allocate those makeup sessions to make sure I'm seeing everybody when I have to see everybody and just make up for missed time. And I do have 40 minutes of prep time. And I also serve as the department chair, so I try to allocate some time to work with teachers that I'm mentoring, collaborating with students, planning meetings. But again, this goes second. My students are my priority, so if I wasn't able to see my students at a specific time, then I try to use that time to work with those students. So this is kind of how it looks in the elementary level. But it totally looks different in the secondary level, and she's going to talk a little bit more about that.
And I would say that regardless of elementary or secondary level, it's always a little bit of a puzzle when you're looking at all the kids' IEPs on your caseload, aligning each common services. You know, in order to get to that green box that she had math 3 days a week, or reading 30 minutes 3 days a week with 3 students, it's really alignment of schedules and partnering with regular ed to get those same 3 kids at the same time. It is always a master puzzle piece, whether you're elementary or secondary.
I think it's ever changing too. It's never the same. You know, when they asked me to do this, I was like, okay, well, I can't really tell you what my day is like because today is very different from yesterday, which is very different from 4 weeks ago or the beginning of the semester or the beginning of the year. So the high school department chairs and I looked at this as different levels. You know, we've got their CCE, our significantly disabled children. We've got some pull-out instruction, and we've got full inclusion at the high school. So we've got some different instruction types. The CCE group is in small group, really focused on functional academic and functional life skills. They're with us most of the day. We do a lot of community outings for a lot of their instruction. The pullout could be small group. It could be reading groups. It could be math groups, really working on those foundational skills. And again, I could say it 100 times, it's all based on their specific IEP goals. And inclusion, we're modifying the general curriculum, working with those education teachers, regular education teachers, to work with them to get their curriculum across and help our students learn those things. The location can be anywhere in the building, mostly for CCEs, just the special education classroom, pull-out special education, and inclusion then would be that full regular education classroom. Different curriculums, the CCE curriculum, life skills, the pull-out would be based off of teachers' created lessons, based off of what they're doing in the classes or what skills they're lacking. We pull from different things, different curriculums. I can't say that there's one that we specifically use. It's just based on what we're doing. And then in the conclusion, we're working with those reg ed teachers to really modify that general curriculum to meet their needs. Transition is part of our job at the high school, working on job skills, post-secondary instruction, you know, getting them ready for that next step of graduating and moving on in life. So, and then during our planning time, For the significantly disabled children, we're usually covering students, covering in crisis, IEP meetings, data monitoring, data collecting, pull-out. They're working with students to complete assignments, covering classes, IEP meetings. In inclusion, same thing, working with students to complete assignments, covering classes and IEP meetings. Other things, I could list a multiple of them, I probably didn't get all of them. A lot of functional skills with the CCE curriculum, toileting, social skills, living, eating, being safe. They require adults with them all times. Our Compass Care reporting, DLM testing. Some of our pull-out rooms are most restrictive rooms. We have a lot of behavior specific rooms, kids that just can't be anywhere else but that one room. And then standardized testing for all of us. And then the regular inclusion, they have to have knowledge of everything. You're working in a science class, working in a math class, kind of across the board. So that's kind of what our day looks like. These are my kids this year. We do a lot of our instruction in the community. We do popcorn on Fridays, brought some to the district here once. It was a special treat for Dr. Siebert. And this is my group doing our morning meetings out in the library. We've had some great connections with the community here this year, so that's my special group.
And obviously, when you look at what a day looks like for Nivi and for Katie, they wear many hats and do it very well. I haven't had the opportunity to see Nivi in action, but I had the opportunity to be at South today for an end-of-the-year party for Katie's classroom, and it is truly a community. The kids were playing games, blowing bubbles, parents were coming to participate in a picnic and a meal, so a lot of special things are being delivered by our special education teachers, not just the curriculum, but building those relationships and rapport with the students. And families. So when we looked at our special education teacher staffing in the school district of Waukesha for the 23-24 school year, we had 67.5 elementary special education teachers between our 12 elementary schools and 67 secondary special education teachers at our 4 middle schools, 4 high schools, and then our 18 to 21-year-old transition program. And again, making sure as we work together, student services and teaching and learning, continuing to have that close collaboration between our special educators and regular education teachers to ensure that we're ensuring our students can access and participate in that Tier 1 instruction with accommodations. So we are wanting them to be with their peers as much as possible within the school setting from kindergarten through 12th grade, and providing those opportunities for them to gain those skills that they're going to need after, whether that's through the Waukesha Transition Academy, seeking employment, or looking at some post-secondary education options.
So thank you for the opportunity to share all the wonderful things that our special education teachers do. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, or Mr. Moore?
I just have a comment. I want to say it takes a special person to be a special education teacher. I don't think people really understand that. I commend y'all. I just don't think people really understand, like, a teacher is one thing, but a special education teacher, they do a lot of things, like you all said. It is so much that is that's embedded in y'all daily tasks that I don't think people really realize. It's a jam-packed schedule, as y'all just demonstrated, and from what I've witnessed from all across the board, you all are from running the IEP meetings, from that to, like you said, the push in, pull out. And then also, you're not only students' heroes, you're also regular education teachers' heroes, because sometimes we come to you for help. Sometimes, like, you know how to work with students that may have an IEP. But I think that one of the things that I do another thing I want to commend y'all for is not only managing IEPs, but 504 plans as well. And I think that if one of you all can explain for for majority of people what the difference are, because I think, that's important too, but just kind of share, like, the difference that you've seen as a teacher between a 504 plan and an IEP. So,
Our 504 plans are managed by, like, our school counselors and school psychologists. So our special education teachers are in charge of the IEPs, and really the IEP, I feel like one of the main differences between a 504 and an IEP is a 504 is more those accommodations or Supplementary aids and services is what we call it in special education. So what kind of accommodations would they need within that regular education setting to access their education? That could be extended time on tests. That could be breaks if they're experiencing anxiety or regulation issues. If it's a student with medical issues in a 504, that might be regular visits to the nurse for treatment, things of that nature. Whereas the IEP, we're going to have some of those accommodations like extended time, breaks for regulation and things like that. But then the difference is that the student with an IEP is receiving specialized instruction related to those disability-related needs.
I see Mrs. Kozlowski, and then Mrs. Koenig.
Thank you. One of the pieces that I like to hear about is workload. And this is specifically for special education. And we hear a lot about how this is growing. We are having more students that are being identified as some type of special needs from. So I want to hear from you, how is your workload? How are you guys doing? Other areas that we are looking at, I know staffing is one of those pieces, but I do want to hear about, is 15 too many? Is that perfect? I don't know I don't know, but I am curious about that.
Okay, I do have 15 at the moment. It all depends, right, on the amount of supports and services that each child is going to need, as well as how many grade levels you're servicing. As of right now, I'm servicing 4 grade levels, so it makes it really challenging for you to be able to efficiently collaborate with as many teachers as that entails. I will go from kindergarten to, I have kinder first, second, and third. So 4 grade levels that I have to be going from classrooms to sped classrooms to supporting with behavior in the morning. It's like you're all over the place. So the more students you have, the more you have to stretch yourself. And also, it kind of limits your ability to be able to efficiently collaborate with regular education teachers and specialists. That's also one area that I feel we need to, as a team, work more, and just providing that support to specialists as well, art teachers, music teachers. So that is not always us working with special education students, but it's everybody working together. Having a big caseload doesn't allow you to do that with the facility that we would love to, right? Service the parent, collaborate with the parents as much. I'm a believer of relationships, and I want to ensure that my parents know that I'm that go-to person at all times. And I have to stay longer at work if I want to make that happen, with a caseload of 15 students. We did have a teacher that was in our school part-time, but like you said, caseloads are increasing everywhere. And we're also dealing with COVID repercussions too, as well. So there's going to be a lot of evaluations that are going to happen at the end of the school year, because we need to provide that time for intervention. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. I feel efficacy of our work is affected by caseload numbers.
At the high school, most of us are about 16. I think it's about the same for all high schools. And it really depends on what you get on your caseloads too. You know, we try to even them out with some of the kids with the emotional behavior disabilities, some SLD, some OHI. Our CCE kids are all on 2 of our caseloads. So we have we have 18 in our building, plus some alt-site placement kids. So it is really just managing everything. Some days it's great. Some days it's like, oh my God, where do I start? What do I give? Where do I give a little here today? We're able to co-teach at the high school, so that's been great. We can help more kids in more different, in other different areas in the classes as well. So there's really no perfect caseload, I guess, unless you had all these kids that just were, doing all the right things at all the right time. But I guess we probably wouldn't be talking about any of this if that was the case, right? So I've had caseloads as high as 25 in some of my districts, long time ago. So, yeah, I mean, is it manageable? Some days, yes, some days, there's room for everything, but I guess that's everywhere, too.
Well, I'm grateful, and I know that our students are, for what you guys do to ensure their education. Truly, it's remarkable.
Thank you.
And it definitely goes without saying and not said enough, but thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I know I'm going to keep it brief because it's already 7, but I just want to say bless you all. I've had the privilege of working alongside many special ed teachers, and I know that the schedule you put up there is very real. And it can change 8 times throughout the day because of based of what the need is. You can be in one room and all of a sudden something happens in another room, someone needs you, and you have to leave there, go here, and even though you may have 15, I know that sometimes those 15, can require the work of maybe 25. It all depends on their needs, like you said. So just bless you all. I mean, it does take a very special person, to be a special ed teacher, and I have the utmost admiration for you all. So
Thank you.
you're amazing.
Any other questions? Well, thank you all for coming. We very much appreciate it. It was a great presentation. We certainly appreciate all your efforts every day, so thank you.
Come visit us anytime.
Yeah, right.
Fridays for popcorn.
Thank you.
All right. Our last order of business would be any future recommendations for future meetings. Seeing none, that will conclude our meeting for this evening, and we will meet again in August, right here in the boardroom. I don't have the date in front of me, but we will. The 6th-ish, maybe? So, thank you. Great evening.